Discover the incredible journey. Heartwarming fight for birth control rights over 50 years. The community health fair buzzed with excitement. Vendors lined the hall of the aging center, the smell of popcorn wafting through the air as families connected over games and booths. Children's laughter echoed, drawing smiles from parents. Yet beneath this cheerful facade, tensions simmered just below the surface, fueled by a fierce debate over birth control access. Sarah, a dedicated nurse and a single mother raising spirited children, Emma and Jake, felt the weight of the day pressing down on her. She organized the event, stringing banners and setting up tables, but her heart was heavy. As the voices grew louder around her, she knew this wasn't just about health, it was a fight for rights that went to the core of who she was as a woman and a mother. "Mom, can we have popcorn now?" Jake chirped, his eyes wide with the excitement of a child wrapped in blissful ignorance. Emma tugged at her sleeves, impatient to rush to the face-painting booth. Sarah forced a smile, keeping the chaos of the event at bay while she watched her kids scurry off, a wave of love swelling in her chest. But as Sarah stood amidst the joy, a growing frustration bubbled within her about how so many women were denied their essential rights. "Let's get the signatures, Sarah," urged a friend, handing her a petition. With determination, she rallied neighbors, feeling the thrum of hope in the community. Yet, an unexpected chill swept through the crowd as her estranged father, Jack, made his way through the throngs, veteran-esque cap on his head and a rigid expression masking old wounds. "Dad?" Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Their eyes locked, memories of past family dinners twisted with the sharpness of their differing beliefs. Jack had always embodied conservative ideals, a pillar of strength in their small town. But in this moment, he stood on the opposing side of a very personal issue, and the sense of betrayal rushed in like cold water. "Sarah," he greeted, the weight of 1,000 unsaid words hanging between them. "We need to protect our families, not put them at risk with this." He gestured broadly at the vibrant booths, disdain dripping from his voice. It was more than a comment about policies. It was a rejection of everything Sarah had worked for as a mother. Sarah felt her heart quicken. The past stirred, memories of love and old arguments colliding like thunderclouds over the town. "This isn't about putting anyone at risk, Dad. It's about giving women a choice." But before the conversation could escalate, the local news cameras swarmed, capturing their confrontation for all to see, spanning the generational gap with flashing lights. Sam, the councilman, appeared, promising to champion reproductive rights, his words like a fleeting bomb but leaving Sarah skeptical. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Later that night, tucking her children in, Sarah felt a familiar tightness in her chest. Hope flickered like a candle in the dark. They deserved better. The next day was the town hall meeting, and she knew it was now or never. As she stood up to speak, trembling with emotion, she gripped the microphone tightly, her heart soaring and racing all at once. "Everyone here has a story. A mother's choice is more than politics. It affects our futures." Eyes turned, and Jack stood in the back, wrestling with pride and fear. Just then, the mayor called for a vote, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah locked eyes with her father, the tension between them like a taut string ready to snap. Would her plea break the silence, or would they dissolve into old, bitter divides? The moment felt electric, each heartbeat echoing like a drum, leaving everyone tethered on the brink of change. Sarah's voice cut through the silence like a knife, sharp with conviction, and yet trembling with the vulnerability that came from years of struggling for her voice to be heard. "This isn't just about me. It's about every woman who has been silenced, about mothers trying to make the right choices for their children." Her words hung in the air, heavy with emotion, rising like steam from a simmering pot, Across the room, she could see the faces of the townsfolk, some nodding in agreement while others held firm expressions like stone. Jack's face remained unreadable, a mask revealing nothing of the man she once knew so well. She wished for a flicker of recognition, a hint that the father she shared holidays with was still somewhere beneath the hardened exterior. The mayor cleared his throat, cutting through the charged atmosphere. "Let us proceed with the vote," he announced. As people began to rise, Sarah's heart raced. Hands waved in the air, yes and no's battling against one another like the yelling kids she often witnessed at soccer games. Her gaze met Jack's again, and she saw a fleeting glimpse of something. Was it doubt? The tightness in her chest grew into a dizzying swell of hope and fear. "Please," Sarah implored, stepping forward. "If there's anything I've learned as a mother, it's that we never truly understand our children until we listen." The words poured out, unbidden. "Dad, you taught me to stand strong and fight for what is right. I'm fighting now for their futures. For Emma, for Jake, and for everyone's children. This is about being able to choose." The murmurs grew louder, anxiety mixing with empathy. A woman in the front row dropped her head into her hands, overwhelmed by the struggle. Nearby, a young father cradled his infant, looking torn as he listened. "Temporary measures can't protect our families the way informed choices can," Sarah continued, urgency punctuating her words. "Access to birth control isn't just a right, it's a necessity for so many families who are just trying to make responsible decisions about when and how to have children." Jack shifted, the weight of the room pressing down on him. His old ideals clashed with the reality of watching his daughter passionately plead, and for the first time, uncertainty crept into his mind. Would protecting women's rights truly put their families at risk? The mayor called for the vote once more, and Sarah could hardly breathe. Each hand raised felt like a heartbeat, a thrum of collective hope echoed in the chambers. Would they stand with her or against her? As the tally began, Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, trembling slightly against the fear that gripped her. The yeas climbed faster than the nays, and hope pulsed in her chest like a wild dance. But were they simply conforming to the moment, or would they truly stand for change? The final count hung in the air, a heartbeat away from revelation. Just before the mayor could announce the result, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a reminder of the world outside. But Sarah was disconnected from everything except the moment at hand. She stood on the precipice of change, ready to embrace whatever came next as the mayor's mouth slowly opened to reveal the decision. Sarah locked eyes with her father for what felt like the last time. Was he ready to understand her choices? Was he prepared to see the world through her eyes, through the eyes of the women they were fighting for? Then, with a booming release, the mayor declared the decision. But before Sarah could fully absorb the outcome, the atmosphere shifted again as a loud crash resonated from somewhere deep in the crowd. Heads turned, and a chaos erupted in response to the unforeseen incident, throwing everything into uncertainty once more. What had just happened? The sound of glass shattering echoed like a gunshot, ricocheting through the room, sending a wave of panic surging through the crowd. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as people turned to look for the source. Sarah's heart raced, every muscle tense, as she strained to catch a glimpse of what had happened. Jack's face was now a mix of confusion and concern. He pushed his way through the throng, instinctively moving towards Sarah, while she stood frozen, trying to process the chaos unfolding around her. "Stay behind me, Sarah," he called, the protective tone in his voice surfacing once more. It stirred something deep within her, years of memories where he was her shield against the world's storms. But as much as she wanted to lean into that comfort, this was her fight now. A commotion broke out as a woman yelled from the back of the hall. "It's just a kid." Someone knocked over the refreshments. The tension cracked as the audience turned from fear to a buzzing curiosity, laughter punctuating the air. The gravity of the situation momentarily lifted. Sarah watched as a teenager scrambled to pick up the pieces of a fallen table. A myriad of voices chimed out their mixed reactions, and for an instant, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. But the moment didn't last. The more she thought about the vote, the reality of the decision loomed larger. She looked at her father, still close, but now with worry etched on his brow. "What's happening?" he asked, his usual bravado crumbling. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her voice shaky but resolute. "We're still waiting for the vote." Jack shook his head in disbelief. "In the middle of all this?" "Yes, because it matters," she replied, her passion flaring again amidst uncertainty. "The moment you can let go of your fears, the better we'll all be." In the flurry of voices, another figure emerged, a man with a clipboard and a wild, frazzled hairdo. He stepped onto the dais, trying to regain control. "Okay, everyone, let us settle down. We can take a breath while we sort this out." People gradually quieted, but the sense of urgency was palpable. Sarah felt the weight return to her chest. She was slipping again into that dark abyss of doubt. "Dad," she whispered, turning to Jack. "Do you see it now? This isn't just about the vote. It's bigger. It's about our freedoms, about choice, about standing together as a community." He paused, looking beyond her into the sea of anxious faces. "How do we convince them?" he finally asked, the veneer of authority cracking. "We go back to what we started. People need to understand why this matters," she urged. "Remember Emma? Jake? Their future is fighting for a voice now." Just as she finished, the mayor called for calm, his voice booming again over the residual noise. "All right, everyone, we're going to take a moment. I urge you to look around you. These are your neighbors. Let South not let fear drive us apart." The crowd quieted, reminded of their common ground. Sarah took a deep breath, hoping that perhaps now they could see the truth between fear and love, between misunderstanding and compassion. As she stepped forward again, ready to speak, a jolt of uncertainty shot through her. Would they still stand with her? Would the chaos of competing emotions pull them apart? The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Would they rise as one, or would the cracks deepen, leaving her fight unfulfilled? Just as she opened her mouth to speak again, her gaze fell on Jack. Would he finally take her hand and stand with her? As their eyes locked, she sensed a shift. Was he beginning to understand? And then, without warning, the lights flickered and dimmed, plunging the room into sudden darkness. Panic flared, and before she could react, a single spotlight burst to life, illuminating a figure at the far end of the hall. "Is this really how we want to decide the future?" the figure questioned, stepping forward. Sarah squinted, the figure familiar yet shrouded in silhouettes. What had just come to light? A wave of dread mixed with confusion washed over her, hearts pounding as uncertainty loomed again. Would this figure be an ally or another obstacle in her way? The figure stepped further into the spotlight, revealing a face Sarah recognized immediately. It was Ms. Harris, the strong-willed teacher who had once inspired her in high school. Sarah felt a mix of relief and dread. Ms. Harris had always been a beacon of courage, but now, after everything that had happened, what could she possibly say to help? The crowd hissed, shifting their energy back to tension. "You shouldn't be here," someone shouted from the back, the voice sharp and accusatory. But Ms. Harris stood tall, unfazed by the outburst. "I'm here because I believe in the future. The same future that is being shaped right now in this very room," she announced, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a knife through fog. The audience quieted, caught off guard by her passion. Sarah's heart raced as she listened. This was it, the moment to rally the voices together. "Is it fear that binds us?" Ms. Harris continued. "Are we so terrified of change that we forsake our hopes and dreams for the sake of comfort? Look at each other. These are your friends, your family. Our community is built on love and understanding, not on fear." A pulse of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah could see some nodding, faces softening as Ms. Harris's words reached them. Jack leaned closer to Sarah, his breath warm against her ear. "Should we join her?" he asked, uncertainty still clinging to his tone. "We have to," Sarah replied, feeling fire ignite in her core. "We need to show them we stand for what's right." Just as Ms. Harris stepped aside, inviting Sarah into the light, another flicker of the lights caught her attention. The crowd gasped, murmurs rising again as more figures shuffled into the spotlight. "Emma? Jake? and others who had gotten involved in the advocacy for birth control rights. Each one representing a face, a story, a reason to fight. "This is not about one person's choice," Emma shouted, her voice ringing with courage. "This is about all of us, our rights to control our own bodies, to decide what is best for our lives and our futures." With each passing moment, more of their classmates began to step forward, each finding strength in unity. The atmosphere crackled with possibility. Sarah felt a shift, a tidal wave of hope washing over her. "Together, we can show them that our voices matter," Sarah shouted, unable to contain her excitement anymore. "We stand for every individual, every dream unfulfilled because fear kept us from reaching for it." The collective voice of the crowd began to rise, clapping and cheering, swaying between worry and hope. Jack had finally taken her hand, a smile breaking on his face. As the echo of cheers filled the hall, Sarah felt a surge of confidence. This might just be the turning point. Yet, another flicker of doubt tugged at her heart. The path was still cluttered with hesitation, perspectives that needed shifting, and doubts that loomed. Just then, a sinister shadow slipped into the periphery, someone watching with calculating eyes. The uncertainty crept back as Sarah's gaze shifted to that corner of the room. "Who is that?" she whispered to Jack, fear slipping into her voice. He frowned, scanning the crowd as well. "Don't know, but we should keep an eye on them." The fervor of unity still thrummed in the air, but now shadows danced on the edges, temptation creeping in to dismantle their hard-earned momentum. Could they really uphold this hope against a darkness they couldn't yet see? Would they be able to withstand whatever was lurking in the corners? The crowd was buzzing, and even the shadow lurking in the corner couldn't extinguish the flame of hope that had ignited just moments ago. Sarah squeezed Jack's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of his presence fortify her determination. "Look," Sarah said, tilting her head slightly as she pointed toward the shadowy figure. "They're wearing that organization's hat, aren't they?" Jack squinted. "Yeah, it's the anti-choice group. I've seen them before, always trying to intimidate people like us." His voice was low, almost a growl, but she could see the apprehension flickering in his eyes. The cheers of the crowd began to settle into a murmur of anxiety as more people became aware of the stranger. Sarah knew she had to keep the momentum going. She took a breath and turned back to the audience, feeling the weight of their eyes on her, gauging their emotions. "Listen," she called, her voice rising once again to be heard above the worried whispers. "We know fear can shake us, but look at all these faces. Our faces. We are not just individuals. We are a community strong and united." There was a ripple of applause, but she could still feel the tension. Emma stepped forward, her eyes bright with conviction. "This is our moment. We cannot let anyone diminish our rights. This fight has been long, but we stand together, not only for ourselves but for every single person who has ever been silenced." A swell of support lifted the energy in the room, faces lighting up with renewed enthusiasm. They were no longer just a group, now they were a movement. Jack leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear again. "I believe in this, Sarah. I want to fight. But what if that person out there tries to disrupt us?" "I don't know," she admitted, "but we have to focus on our purpose. Let us show them our strength, not our fear." Suddenly, the shadow shifted, stepping out into the light. A tall figure with a familiar stern expression. It was Ron, a local activist known for his controversial stances. He held a megaphone, his presence a jarring contrast to the hopeful atmosphere. "Is this really what you all stand for?" he yelled, voice booming, venom lacing his words. "You think you can take control of your lives? This is about protecting the innocent. Do you even know what you're fighting for?" The crowd fell silent, uncertainty gripping them once more. But Ms. Harris stepped back in, her resolute voice slicing through the tension. "What we fight for is the right to choose. The right to make decisions about our own bodies, about our own futures. This is about empowerment, not ignorance." Applause thundered through the hall again, and Sarah's heart swelled. Maybe, just maybe, they could maintain this momentum. Yet as Ron shouted back, his words soaked in disdain, Sarah felt the doubt creep back in. Could they really keep standing strong against this opposition? Would Ron's voice of fear drown out their own? In that moment, it became clear that this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. With a burning fire in her chest and a mixture of determination and fear, Sarah counted on her community to rise up. But what if their power wasn't enough to stand against the wave of opposition? One that seemed only to grow more menacing with each passing minute. The stakes were rising. Would their united courage withstand the storm approaching? The room crackled with electricity, the ground shifting beneath their feet. Sarah's heart raced as the tension thickened with each shout from Ron. She could hardly believe that someone from their own community would stand against them like this. His words cut deep, but she would not let him take their resolve. "Together we are stronger," she called out, gripping the edge of the podium. Her voice was steadier this time, fueled by desperation and hope. "Every person here has a story, a struggle. We stand for our rights, for future generations." Jack's hand squeezed hers, grounding her amid the chaos. "Forget him, Sarah. Focus on those who believe in us," he whispered, nodding at the faces around them, wide-eyed and brave. He was right. They had to drown out the negativity, not let it fester. Emma stepped up again, fanning the flames of their collective spirit. "Look at our journey. We've fought for decades." She waved her arms enthusiastically, invoking memories of previous victories. Each chant, each demonstration, every single one brought us closer to the freedom and choices that are our birthright. The crowd began to murmur, voices rising in a chorus of agreement. The sound was like a heartbeat, a reminder of their shared strength. Ron sneered, his confidence unshaken. "You think empowerment comes from noise? Look outside. This isn't conversation. It's a declaration of war against morality." But Ms. Harris didn't flinch. "This is not about morality imposed on us. It's about living in a world where everyone has a choice to decide what's best for themselves. That's empowerment." A ripple of applause broke through the fear. It was just the spark they needed. Sarah felt the energy surge, the room swelling with determination. She turned toward the crowd, raising her voice above the din. "Let us remind them why we're here. Each one of us has the right to choose our paths. We will not be silenced." A chant erupted. "Choice! Choice! Choice!" It reverberated off the walls, shaking Ron's icy demeanor. As the sound rolled through the crowd, Sarah's spirit soared. Maybe they could withstand this storm after all. But Ron wasn't done. He turned the megaphone toward the crowd, a wicked smile creeping across his face. "You think this is just noise? What if this leads to consequences? Protests bring backlash, and trust me, you're in for a fight you're not prepared for." Dread mingled with their resolve, but Sarah refused to back down. What would their ancestors have done in the face of adversity? They fought, they persevered, and so could she. "Let them come," Sarah shouted, emboldened. "We're ready." Their chant grew louder, filling the room with unyielding energy. The cheer was a beautiful defiance against the shadow that loomed. Suddenly, the doors burst open. The air was thick with anticipation as reporters streamed in, cameras flashing. It was larger than she ever expected. This was becoming something monumental, and the stakes only continued to rise. At that moment, Sarah caught Ron's eyes and saw the flicker of uncertainty behind them. Perhaps the storm he threatened was not as powerful as he believed. Maybe the tide was shifting. But just as quickly, doubt invaded her thoughts. What would it mean if they didn't succeed? Would they be ready for the consequences? As she locked eyes with Jack, the weight of the moment settled heavily. They were about to embark on a battle larger than themselves, one that could change everything they knew. What if they uncovered a secret that could alter their fight for good? Could they truly rally everyone and create the change they all desperately desired? The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they could not turn back now. The air hung thick with possibility, as the chanting grew into a relentless wave, breaking against the walls and washing over everyone present. Each call of choice, 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 built a bridge for hope, a span that connected them all. Sarah could feel the ground shifting again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from unity. Cameras flashed in a flurry, capturing expressions of fervor and determination. It painted a vivid picture. People from all walks of life, their faces lit with the fierce light of purpose. Sarah's heartbeat synced to the rhythm of the crowd, a pulsing reminder that they were not alone. They were entwined in a shared struggle, a tapestry of stories woven together with threads of resilience. Emma leaned closer to the podium, her voice slicing through the noise like a beacon. Look around you. Look at the strength in this room. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about our children, about the choices they deserve to have. The crowd roared, their energy rising like smoke from a fire, illuminating their collective resolve. But Ron remained poised, a sneer still etched on his face. This will end in disaster, you know. Look at the headlines: chaos in the chambers. Protesters divide the community. You'll have nothing to show for it. Sarah's stomach tightened at his words, a knot of anxiety making itself known. But she looked around and saw Jack, his eyes locked onto hers, filled with a fierce tenderness. He gave a small nod as if to say, "We've come too far to turn back now." It was a silent promise, grounding her fears. "I refuse to believe that," Sarah declared, surprising even herself with the fervor in her voice. "We are not the ones dividing the community, it's the walls built by fear and ignorance. It's time we dismantle them together." The crowd erupted again, voices breaking into jubilant cheers mixed with teary-eyed smiles. An elderly woman at the front, silver hair shining under the bright lights, raised her fist triumphantly. "Finally, we are here to write our own story." That spark ignited a fire. Young couples, parents with children, the elderly, and everyone in between stood shoulder to shoulder. Each face that turned to look at Sarah filled her with hope. They were ready to face whatever storm Ron threatened. Together, they were shields against his negativity. But as the cheers grew louder, so did her unease. What if Ron's words weren't hollow? What if the backlash was real? The thought flickered like a faulty light, dancing at the corners of her mind. This burden weighed on them all. They had to be prepared. Just as she began to voice her concern, something shifted. A commotion in the back drew her eyes. A young man with a microphone stepped forward, his presence commanding and immediate. "I heard what you said," he shouted, his voice breaking through the sound. "And I can help." The energy in the room changed. Everyone turned to him, curious and cautious. Who was he? What did he know? Sarah felt a rush of confusion and intrigue. "Who are you?" she called out, raising a brow. "What do you mean? I'm not just here to watch. I have information about what's really going on. There's more at stake than you know." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Heart racing, Sarah stepped forward. "What do you mean?" His eyes flickered with urgency. "What if I told you that there's a hidden truth that could shift everything? That's why Ron's so terrified." The weight of his words landed with a thud. Sarah felt the collective breath of the crowd catch, a moment suspended in time. She glanced at Jack, uncertainty written on his face. What did this stranger know? What could unravel from this moment? The pulse of expectation thrummed through the air. The fight for choice might take an unexpected turn, one that could change everything. Would they be ready for what came next? The real battle was just beginning. Sarah's heart raced as she stared at the young man, a sense of urgency radiating from him. The crowd's anticipation was palpable, a collective breath held in unison. "Who are you?" she pressed again, this time a little more urgently. "What truth do you have?" He hesitated just long enough for doubt to creep in, but then he took a step forward, gripping the microphone tighter. "My name is Alex," he said, voice steady now, "and I've seen things behind the scenes. The push for the choices you seek isn't just about the present. It's deeply rooted in a past that they don't want you to remember." Whispers ran through the crowd. "What does he mean? Is this true?" Sarah saw Jack squinting, trying to grasp the weight of Alex's words. Hope and worry mixed in her chest. "What does this have to do with our fight?" Emma shouted, her voice cutting through the buzzing uncertainty. "We need to focus on the here and now. We're ready to fight for our rights, not get distracted by fears of the past. Alex nodded but pressed on. I understand. You're fueled by passion and determination. But this fight is bigger than the headlines. There's substantial evidence that lawmakers like Ron have connections to, well, let us say powerful interests. They will stop at nothing to prevent you from getting what you deserve. Are you saying Ron is being manipulated? Sarah couldn't hide the incredulity in her voice. They were standing together, fighting for a future. Yet this revelation created a rift of doubt. Exactly. Those who control the narrative can control the choices we make. They know that if you unite, if you share your stories, they'll be powerless. He scanned the crowd, meeting eyes filled with curiosity and skepticism as their glances connected. Sarah sensed a kindling of courage fueling them. If there was truth buried beneath layers of greed and manipulation, how could they not unearth it together? What do we do? Someone in the crowd shouted. Alex leaned in, voice low but fervent. You need to share your stories. Bring more people in. Let the world see the real faces behind this fight. Only then will Ron and those pulling the strings be scared enough to change their game. A ripple of energy raced through the gathering, a force binding them. Sarah felt its warmth envelop her, knitting together the tension that had clouded the air. She lifted her chin, looking at the faces around her. This was more than just a fight. It was a movement and awakening. Let us do it, Emma exclaimed, her voice filled with renewed vigor. Let us share our stories. The crowd erupted into chatter, voices overlapping in a symphony of hope. Sarah felt everything around her shifting, an invisible wall beginning to crumble. They had a chance to reclaim the narrative. But amidst the growing excitement, Ron's chilling voice cut through. You think your stories can change anything? You're fools to think. Sarah bristled at his ominous tone. But Alex responded sharply. They're not fools. They're the future. With the tension rising, Sarah looked around, overwhelmed by the energy building. They needed clarity, they needed focus. This is our moment, she said, her voice strong and unwavering. We won't just tell our stories, we'll make them listen. We'll show them we won't back down. As agreement spread like wildfire, she caught Jack's gaze, his faith in her shining brighter than ever. Together, they could clean the slate and craft their own story. Just then, the lights flickered, plunging the room into temporary darkness before returning with a flicker. Gasps filled the air. What was happening? Was this a sign of something more sinister? A chill went through the crowd as murmurs erupted around her. What other forces were at play? The room buzzed with energy and fear, and Sarah's heart raced again, battling uncertainty. Every story, every voice mattered. But what if the forces against them were stronger than they imagined? Would they have the strength to stand tall, even as the shadows began to close in? The lights settled back into place, casting an uneasy glow over the faces of the crowd. Sarah felt the weight of their hopeful anticipation, but the flickering had ignited anxious whispers. What had just happened? Was it just a technical failure? Or was it a warning from Ron's camp? Stay focused, she shouted over the murmurs. Fear won't win this fight. Emma stepped forward, her determination unwavering. We need to act. Let us create a plan. Alex, what can we do next? Alex took a deep breath, grounding himself. We meet here again in a few days. Each one of you needs to talk to friends, family, anyone who will listen. Share what matters. Share your truths because every story adds fuel to our flame. Nods and shouts of agreement rippled through the crowd. But Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. But what if we reach the wrong audience? What if they don't want to hear? Those who don't want to listen will be our biggest challenge, Alex replied. But they won't be able to ignore us if we gather strength as a united front. We have powerful stories, and they'll catalyze real change. The crowd responded with a chorus of determination, like a wildfire crackling to life. Sarah's heart swelled at the thought of their shared resolve. This was more than just a fight. It was her family's story, her community's struggles, and she was ready to lift their voices higher. But we can't just rely on stories. Someone shouted from the back. What if Ron's got tricks up his sleeve? What if he tries to scare us into silence? That's precisely why we need each other, Jack interjected, stepping closer to Sarah. Together, there's power in our fearlessness. Alone, we get crushed. Together, we stand tall. The crowd erupted into cheers once more, a mix of fear and bravery in the air. But as they rallied, doubt still gnawed at Sarah. She glanced at Alex, whose stature had risen with their collective energy. And if Ron tries to shut us down, what's our backup plan? Alex's expression shifted. We'll enlist allies, those who understand the stakes. We have to make noise outside these walls. Social media, community events, the louder we are, the harder it will be for him to silence us. Sarah felt a spark ignite. If they could spread their message far and wide, wouldn't that drown out Ron's threats? She took a step forward, raising her fist, fueled by adrenaline. Let us build our network. Text, call, and post everywhere we can. Let us flood the airwaves with our stories. The energy surged again, the crowd around her transformed into a pulsating entity of strength and unity. Cheers erupted, voices mixed with excitement, disbelief, and a fierce determination that was infectious. Suddenly, the lights dimmed again, and the faint hum of static filled the air. Gasps filled the room as a low rumble of discontent spread throughout. Ron's image flickered to life on the large screen above them, his expression smug. Is this a joke? He sneered. You think your stories matter? You think you're some kind of revolution? I'll show you just how irrelevant your words really are. In that moment, a chill swept through Sarah. Ron's presence cast a long shadow, reminding them of the uphill battle ahead. It was one thing to rally their emotional strength, but she could feel the stakes rising. The reality of their fight pressing as Ron continued to taunt them. Sarah clenched her fists, resolute. They had stories, yes, but they also needed strategy. It was time for action, real action. Gather your courage, everyone, she called, steeling herself for what was to come. We'll show him what we're made of. Let us shift this narrative from invisible to unstoppable. As cheers erupted once more, Sarah allowed herself a fleeting glance at Jack, who wore an expression of unwavering hope. But in the back of her mind, the gnawing question remained. Could they truly face the storm that Ron was about to unleash? The crowd began to chant. But Sarah's thoughts raced. Was this unity enough? What were they truly prepared to face in the coming days? With every pulse of energy that surged through her, the weight of their mission pressed heavier on her shoulders. Would their courage hold firm against the looming storm? As the crowd's cheers echoed in the hall, Sarah could feel the adrenaline pumping through her veins, drowning out the lingering fears in the back of her mind. They had come together, a community transformed into a force of nature. Let us do this, she shouted, grounding herself in the moment. We're not just voices. We're a movement. We are going to make waves. We will drown out fear with hope. The applause surged around her, vibrating the air with powerful conviction. Jack beamed with pride, eyes glimmering with a fiery determination. For so long, their differences had carved a divide between them. But here they stood, united like never before, father and daughter on the same side. In the days that followed, Sarah, along with the rest of the community, poured their energy into spreading their message. Each story shared, each face captured in a video, was another step toward reclaiming their narrative. Emma led the charge at school, rallying students with an impassioned plea to speak out about the importance of reproductive rights. Jake created vibrant posters, filling the community board with messages of choice and empowerment. Then they held their community gathering. Kitchens filled with delicious smells as families brought potluck dishes, collecting together not just for nourishment, but for heartfelt discussions. They shared stories, each one weaving into a bigger tapestry of struggle and hope. Sarah watched as barriers fell, strangers turned into friends, each voice amplifying the next, igniting a wildfire of solidarity. But just as momentum built, Ron's group struck back. Rumors began to swirl. They flooded social media with fear tactics, painting Sarah and her supporters as radicals threatening the family unit. Felt like stepping into a storm. Doubt crept in again, whispering in her ear that perhaps they weren't strong enough. Then one evening, Sarah found herself at the kitchen table, surrounded by her children. Emma was restless, flipping through her phone, while Jake doodled on a notepad. "Mom, I don't get it," Emma said, glancing up. "Why are they so scared of us? We're just asking for a choice." Sarah felt her heart swell as she looked at them, the children who were her reason for fighting. "Because, sweetie, change is hard. Sometimes people don't want to feel vulnerable, so they lash out. Can't we just show them we'll be okay?" Jake suggested, dipping his brush into paint for the next poster. "Exactly," Sarah responded, excitement bubbling within her. "We need to share our stories. Let them see how much we care." So they did. The family gathered others around to create powerful content videos showcasing families sharing their choices, their truths, hopes for the future. This wasn't just a call to arms. It was part of a bigger discussion about love, responsibility, and freedom. Slowly, even the stubborn opponents began to crack. During their second town hall meeting, Jack stood up, face resolute. "I fought for my beliefs my entire life," he said, voice steady. "But I've also learned that listening matters just as much as speaking. And when I look at my daughter, at the people gathered here, I see love. And that's worth fighting for." There was a moment of stillness before the crowd erupted into applause. Sarah blinked back tears, suddenly aware of the transformation happening before her eyes. It was more than just a vote now. It was a connection, a bridge built between generations, a single heartbeat rising against a wave of fear as they prepared for the final vote that would determine a new policy in favor of birth control access. Sarah felt a calmness wash over her. She had opened doors, not just for herself, but for Emma, Jake, and generations to come. The room buzzed with tension when the mayor called for the vote. Each hand raised echoed like a drumbeat, steady and strong. And then the moment came. The yeas have it. The room exploded. Cheers and claps enveloped her like a warm embrace. Sarah turned, meeting Jack's proud gaze as he pulled her into a tight hug. "You did this," he whispered. In that moment, she understood. The shadows had not won. They had turned fear into strength, pain into possibility. Surrounded by her community, Sarah looked at the faces full of joy and relief. Despite the challenges ahead, they had emerged triumphant. As laughter and cheers echoed through the hall, she felt heavier burdens lift. Together they had not just changed a law. They had shifted mindsets, built a legacy to stand tall against whatever would come next. As Sarah embraced the warmth of community and love, she realized this was just the start of their journey, a journey of understanding, growth, and hearts forever changed by the fight for choice. Now imagine the power of those stories. Imagine sharing and transforming lives. This is the time to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that could inspire more change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these powerful messages. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel.